welcome to SVG-TV News for Monday, March 23rd, 2020. I am Investor Points with the details. The Ministry of Health over the weekend issued advisories for social and mass gatherings as part of measures recommended by the World Health Organization to contain the spread of the novel coronavirus. As it currently stands, SVG only has one confirmed case of COVID-19. As we hear in this report by Larissa Pugsley, churches, event organizers, and the public at large are encouraged to practice social distancing at this time.
Faith leaders are asked to be socially, culturally, and spiritually flexible at this time and to be proactive to protect themselves and their congregation. This as the Ministry of Health here in SVG steps up measures to fight the spread of the novel coronavirus pandemic as recommended by the World Health Organization. In a press release, the ministry recommends the limit of those attending church functions. Speaking on this and other measures on radio on Sunday, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Simone Kieser-Beach says at this time the recommended number of persons in a church setting should be between 25 to 30 persons.
We're asking the leaders and the congregation that thinking about and even practicing where they would minimize the number of persons who would come to any particular service. So if you have 100, you can hold 100 people in your church. They're asking maybe just 30 people might turn up on a particular event, or if we could move more towards, say, praying from home, smaller groups, and even when you do meet, to maintain that at least 3 feet distance between each other.
In relation to weddings, the Ministry of Health suggests that if a wedding is already planned, then a limited gathering of a maximum of 10 persons for this ceremony is advisable, or have the reception postponed. Similarly, organizers of funeral services are advised to limit attendees to immediate family members between 10 and 25 persons. Persons are also advised to postpone or cancel all non-essential social and cultural gatherings and avoid visiting housebound members, especially the elderly.
And understanding that maybe now is not the best time to be having a big fest or a mass party, because we really want to keep intention safe, we want to keep each other safe, and by decreasing the amount of mingling that we're doing, that is going to help us.
Further, the ministry advised to avoid the lunchroom rush at the employee dining room, cafeteria, or restaurant. Persons are also asked to avoid using public pens at the retail counter, hotels, and banks or other public places. Instead, use your own pen. As it regards to public transportation, commuters are asked to avoid the rush periods where possible. Employers are also encouraged to consider staggering start times for work, allowing employees to work from home and avoid times when employees will be exposed to crowds. The suggestion has also been made for employers to utilize telemeetings, teleconferences, emails, and if there is a need to meet face-to-face, to use large conference rooms. As part of other measures instituted, as of today, Monday, 23rd March 2020, persons traveling from the United States of America, United Kingdom, and Europe will have to comply with mandatory quarantine.
The likelihood of another imported case still remains, even as we are decreasing flights to Vincent decrease because of decisions made outside of St. Vincent, but also because of the steps we are taking in terms of increasing quarantine requirements. So coming in from the UK, US, and the EU will be required to go on the mandatory 14 days of quarantine.
The CMO said that they will be doing their part by ensuring that persons follow through with quarantine.
We visit them when we determine that the person is probably less than compliant, we will do the court orders, and we would ask for the assistance of the police, the mandatory ones. But the voluntary ones, that's what we are asking for. Within voluntary for the persons coming from the UK, US, and the EU, we will be doing checks. So we will be doing random checks, and we'll be also doing phone checks on those persons.
Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves is expected to address the nation in COVID-19 tomorrow, and there is expected to be ministerial statements about the pandemic in Parliament on Thursday. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, a Cuban medical brigade is due to arrive in the country. The medical brigade consists of 12 professionals, which includes doctors and nurses. For SVG-TV News, Larissa Pugsley.
The Ministry of Health is cautioning the general public that the use of anti-malarial drugs, hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine to treat or prevent COVID-19 has not yet been approved, and they should be careful with their use. The named drugs have been widely used to treat rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, along with its related complaints of hair loss and joint pains. On radio on Sunday, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Simone Kiese Beach said the named drugs have not yet been approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration for the treatment of COVID-19. Hence the need to be cautious, as pharmacies are reporting a shortage of the said drugs.
Because what we have found is that our pharmacies have run out of some of those medications, and the persons who really need it, those persons with lupus, those persons with rheumatoid arthritis, would not be able to get their medications, and so therefore we're creating another problem where we have persons who depend on those medications not being able to get them to maintain, to stay under control.
As it relates to the use of ibuprofen, the CMO says that that is another medication which persons must be careful of using at this time.
The ibuprofen coming out of WHO, there's a caution about using ibuprofen for persons suspected of having COVID. And I'm not sure if some persons might remember when we were dealing with dengue and when we were dealing with Zika and some of those other illnesses, we caution against using ibuprofen. In those cases, it's related to increased risk of bleeding, yes. So the safe option, again, comes right back to the acetaminophen or paracetamol, Panadol, Tylenol. That's what we advise.
The Ministry of Health said persons should have a medically appropriate reason to be in possession of prescription drugs. Hand washing and social distancing continues to be stressed by the health authorities here and worldwide to stem the spread of COVID-19. On Sunday's edition of the VuPoint program on SVG-TV, infectious disease specialist Dr. Gerald Thompson took the opportunity to highlight the importance of soap as part of a person's hand washing regimen to protect themselves against the virus.
Soap, liquid soap. The virus has a capsule around it. You see that round capsule? That's made out of kind of a fatty tissue. And the virus loves, most of our hands are very greasy. The virus gets into that greasy layer on top of our hands. And just simply washing it on the water ain't enough. You need soap that acts as a term, let me use the word, a surfactant to dig under that greasy, fatty layer and remove that virus. On top of that, the virus itself, you know what the soap does? The soap disrupts that capsule around the virus and cracks that capsule, so deactivating it. Soap is so critical in killing this virus, and washing hands is, I'm saying it's about 60% of the process. That distance spacing and so is another 30%. Please.
Several countries worldwide, including some in this region, have closed their borders and essentially locking themselves off from the rest of the world as part of measures to protect the populace. A complete lockdown can, however, affect production and productivity of many sectors, including agriculture, which is key for food security. Dr. Thompson said it is important to use science to have a response tailor-made for a country.
I think we have that capacity. And this brings the whole issue of whether a country goes for a lockdown, like some countries have done, or whether you use the Singaporean or Swedish model and so forth, which hasn't gone with the complete lockdown, but has certain strategic interventions. Like we've done the closure of schools as of Friday. I know that there's going to be, I think the announcement was made today, but there'll be a formal announcement in terms of mass gatherings and so forth, which certainly will affect restaurants and affect churches and other things of that nature. And those things will be properly defined and announced to the people of St. Vincent Grandy in terms of the numbers and so forth and things like that. But I think that we have to take this whole COVID-19 very seriously, but act in a smart way that is designed for St. Vincent and the Grenadines and not just strictly adopt something that might have been implemented in another country. But we have to use science, and we have to use whatever local knowledge we have to make sure that we're doing the right thing, basing it on some scientific approach, as well as our local cultural aspects as well.
The World Health Organization has been referring to the term flattening the curve. Dr. Thompson explained what the term means and what is being done.
Hearing people talking about flattening of the curve, and the whole idea is that we do not have a big surge of people becoming sick to overwhelm our healthcare system and the facility we have at Argyle. And it is our view that so far we are on track to be able to do that. It's just that we must continue to intensify the hand washing and further push the space, the distance that people are apart. But in terms of the resources, I will not say we have thousands of ventilators. We have only a few, but we have others on order to cater for a certain amount of patients. And we have, with the facility, contingency plans at different stages to deal with a certain number of it. What we have to do is to make sure we do not have a surge of persons becoming sick if our cases move from one to more cases. And I think that the efforts we're making so far have been very successful, but we have to also expect that in due course we may get cases, and that it's a slower process, and our healthcare system can take care with the mask and PPE, personal protection equipment that we have in stock.
On radio today, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves said at this time the borders of SVG will remain open for varying reasons. Speaking on Star FM, PM Gonsalves says that they are monitoring the travel advisories, noting that some countries have stopped flights into SVG, such as Air Canada Rouge.
The ports and airports nevertheless still open. The activities which take place there are very limited, and you are able better to screen people. Let's take Canada. Air Canada is not coming. Right. Air Canada, so practically speaking, the only way any Canadian will come in here is if they come in on a yacht. If they come in on a yacht, you'd be able, they have more nurses and so on at the ports. Closer security, you'll be able to check to see if that person has flu-like symptoms or respiratory problems.
The Prime Minister said while he understands the concerns of keeping the borders open, there are other factors which must be taken into consideration.
Anything, either no local transmission or the most minimal. So Trinidad has locked down completely, even for Trinidadians as of last night, returning home. Of course, Trinidad has a different set of circumstances. Absolutely. They have very little tourism as a proportion of their economy historically. And in any event, they have a huge sovereign oil fund. Well, it's called the Heritage Fund. It's, I don't know, 5-6 billion US.
Parents have been encouraged to take the time to speak with their children on COVID-19 and the importance of practicing good hygiene. This from counselor at the Mental Health Rehabilitation Center, Elika Matthews, who along with two of her colleagues were speaking with SVG-TV News on the possible psychological impacts of COVID-19 on the population.
As parents and children deal with COVID-19, I want to encourage parents to control the controllables, meaning there are things that are going to be beyond your level of control, but what you can control is the information that is given to your children initially. I'm encouraging parents to have that initial conversation with their children, letting them know that things are going to have to change. They're going to have to adjust certain habits, such as washing your hands, being sanitary. I think that's a conversation that should start at home. It cannot be the sole responsibility of a teacher to let children know that there is going to be change. In order for change to happen, you're going to have to reinforce it.
Self-quarantine and social distancing are two other measures which are being promoted as part of efforts to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Matthews said it is important for families to have the necessary discussions on these matters.
What we want to encourage parents to do is have a conversation as a family and hold each other accountable. Make sure that everybody is taking the necessary steps to sanitize themselves. Make sure it is done within the home as a family activity so persons know that they are not alone. In this time when they're talking about quarantine, if people get infected, it can be very scary for persons who aren't sure what that will come with. So I want to encourage persons to have that conversation as a family, be encouraged as a family, make changes as a family, and take the necessary steps as outlined by WHO, CDC, the ministry. There is information on the SVG Health page in how to have this conversation with children, in how to have this conversation with others. We don't want to be in a position where they're hearing information from other people and you're not exactly sure what they understand, because children do hear. As much as we think, oh well, he or she is not affected, children do hear things and they do get scared. So make sure we're having these conversations at home with our children.
As the global pandemic COVID-19 grips the entire world, the Bishop of the Methodist Church in the Southern Caribbean, Reverend Derek Richards, is urging Methodists here in the SVG, throughout the region and around the world, that in this time of darkness to look to God and remember His promise to never leave us or forsake us. Reverend Richards, a Vincentian national who now resides and serves in Barbados, was at the time preaching to an online audience of over 3,000 viewers from around the world who joined to worship on the church's YouTube channel this past Sunday.
It may be during this uncertain season that you may recognize that your life has been going in the wrong direction. It may be during this uncertain moment that you begin to appreciate the little things that God has blessed us with, that makes life meaningful and fulfilling. God continues to speak to us through His Son Jesus Christ and assures us that His promises are still trustworthy and true. Even in the midst of a pandemic, He says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. I will be with you even to the close of the age.
The bishop further urged viewers that this was the time for them and the church to do its part in being responsible while still practicing the Christian principle of caring for one another.
Of the presence of God during this time of uncertainty. He will not leave you. He will not forsake you. Know that He's with us. Has the potential to significantly reorganize our lives and our world. It has the potential to create a new normal which can be devastating. Therefore, do your part. We can beat this, but we have to be sensible. We can beat this, but we have to be responsible. It is the Christian thing to do.
Reverend Richards spoke of the book of Romans 8 in the Holy Bible, reminding the online congregation that nothing can separate them from the love of God. He likened this modern time to 1823, when national hero of Barbados and Methodist Sarah Ann Gill sheltered fellow Methodists in her home, holding services in secret and worshiping God after angry mobs tore down the Methodist chapel in Barbados. Reverend Richards said that in the same way in 1823 the church could not be silenced, today with COVID-19 it will not be silenced either.
And therefore I challenge you, do not lose your humanity in all of this. Do not lose your humanity. Do not ever get to the stage where in order to preserve your life you have to endanger the lives of others. We still have to look out for each other while at the same time protecting each other.
Physical church services have been suspended in Methodist churches within the South Caribbean district, which includes Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, St. Lucia, and Barbados. The services are being streamed online on the various churches' YouTube channels every Sunday morning until further notice. Minister of Agriculture Saboto Caesar has reassured Vincentians that the country is food secure amidst pending threats of disruptions in international food supply chains. The minister encouraged citizens to work to ensure that structures for life and living are maintained, noting that farmers, fishers, and traffickers must come out of this period stronger and united around the common goal of making SVG a better place. The ministry said it has started mass production of vegetable seedlings, which will be made available to farmers at a heavily subsidized price, which is the first limb of the revised national production strategy targeting increased production and productivity of short-term crops. The minister noted in a recent interview that SVG, through the government, will continue to honor its obligation to feed its people and to export to OECS and CARICOM member states. Minister Caesar was recently nominated to chair the committee charged with the responsibility to craft and implement a regional COVID-19 food security plan. Meanwhile, the ministry said it is continuing its thrust to ensure that fruits that boost the immune system are readily available for all in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In a release dated March 21st, the ministry expressed thanks to persons who continue to call and submit quantities and respective prices for immune-boosting commodities. These include ginger, turmeric, soursop, oranges, limes, lemon, wax apples, spinach, guavas, golden apple, tamarind, and cherry. The ministry restates its encouragement to share these commodities at the community level and to ensure that all fruits are washed adhering to the highest standards of proper hygiene. It noted that this system must operate within the parameters of all the advice provided by the Ministry of Health. The RSVG police force, along with family and friends of the late Daniel Ezekiel Hall, came together on Saturday to bid him farewell. Up to the time of his death, Hall, who served the RSVG police force for 34 years, was an assistant superintendent of police and was serving in the capacity as band master. Speaking at his funeral service, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Louis Straker said ASP Hall was a very committed police officer and that he admired his passion for helping the youth.
His life was characterized by service. Service, service. To the old, to the young, to the police force, and to all those with whom he came in contact. I admire the fact that he took a special interest in the youth. With the summer youth program, he sought to bring them in and sought to inculcate in them the values of music, so that instead of leaving them out there to create mischief, they can use their time and their talent in order to better themselves and make a contribution to their country.
Sir Louis said that the last encounter he had with ASP Hall was when he visited in the hospital and prayed with him.
Before I got to visit him in the hospital, he went home, and I felt good that maybe he would recuperate in a short period of time. But then he was back in the hospital, and then I took the opportunity to visit with him there in the hospital. I held his hand, I talked to him, and he couldn't respond. But I prayed with him, and I asked him how his soul was with God, and he squeezed my hand as an act of affirmation that all was well. And that was the last occasion I had with him. We know of his contribution.
Extending condolences to Hall's family, Commissioner of Police Colin John thanked them for allowing the police force and SVG to benefit from Hall's expertise.
Hall was a very hard worker. He was very knowledgeable, not only as regard music, but as regard policing. Of all the officers, since I became commissioner, of all the officers in the gazetted rank, Hall has been making consistently, in fact every month, the most visits to police station. Whenever you see the extract, Hall has done the most visits. And he would point out any discrepancy, he would point out any things that need to be done in the various stations and bring it to our attention. He would also look out for the members of the police band.